Hello and welcome. It's John here from the AI Institute, and I'm here with one of our founders of the AI Institute, Reid Bates. So Reid has got an incredible history in marketing. He's been a key part of growing the I Love Real Estate brand to the preeminent real estate education training company in Australia over the last 20 years, and he's also been a key part of probably well over $100 million of ad spend on other global e-commerce education brands. So, he's got an incredible track record of business success, and we're so grateful to have him as part of the AI Institute. And he's also an absolute ninja when it comes to things like reporting at a granular level, from trashing hundreds of millions of dollars of ad spend down to the very last dollar, and also AI projects. So in this quick rapid fire interview, we're just going to talk to him about some of the projects that he's been excited by and most proud of recently. So Reid, thanks so much for being here. Are there any sort of projects that sort of stand out as that you've been loving, maybe made possible through what's happened with AI in the last few years, or any projects that you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for that introduction, John. I'll try and live up to the hype. That was quite the intro, but no, thank you. Yeah, look, as you said, I've sort of been involved in the marketing, I guess the convergence of that marketing, the tech side of things for like 15 years now. Back when the internet marketing was a new sort of a new platform and a new avenue for people, and so a lot of that tracking and that the obsessiveness, I guess, of building marketing systems for the tracking stems back to that from the old days where we would have to buy our online media on the phone. We'd be calling up all the Fairfax and the Murdoch groups and stuff and buying banners and things like that on their websites. And with no sophistication and no ability to target audiences or track how that went, we sort of had to build our own. So as a bit of a background, that's kind of where I've sort of come from, and that sort of focus on being able to accurately track and optimize your ad spend has just been what I've focused on almost exclusively for like 15 years now. So, as you said, a cool part of being able to spend that much, the $100 million in ad spend, is being able to accurately track that and feed that revenue back into those right areas. So that for me has been my job, and it's been something that, I've got a coding background. I've got like an engineering background. I've coded a lot of solutions in order to achieve that. But the last couple of years, mate, with AI, it's just becoming incredible just how fast we can solve these problems. And while, I can code, I'm doing less and less of it these days. It's more about operating at that much higher level, and designing systems and having like real conversations with AI to come up with the best way of solving them, things to look out for, how we can make sure things are secure, and operating at that level. And then, just being able to then come up with those solutions agentically. So I've got, computers actually doing the grunt of that hard work, of the coding, and then, me just being more of that director role. So with that, we've come up with lots of different projects that I've been working on the last few years, and I've always got 2 or 3 on the go at the moment. And it's an interesting sort of paradox that we're so much more efficient now, and I can ship things so much faster than I used to. But I've never been more busy because I feel like I can't stop. If you take an hour for lunch, it's like, man, I could have got so much done in that hour. So, but it's exciting. Like it's work that you love. So, that's really cool. So things that, I guess, one of the first sort of projects that we worked on that had that sort of agentic sort of AI sort of feel was one we worked on together with sort of looking at our customer service department on a coaching program. A lot of that customer support was coming through email, and that was getting overrun. And then obviously we went to a ticketing system, which a lot of companies do. But it was just, we're answering a lot of the same questions. And with a global business, a lot of those questions were coming in at different time zones and often weren't getting answered fast enough. And we needed a global team just to manage that. So one of the first things, obviously, you would look to do with AI now is to actually try and replace a lot of that, or at least, speed up that process and improve that customer support. And so while replacing staff, I guess, isn't, it's never nice to do, but, it's an efficiency in your business to, if one person can do the job of three, it really did that. It cut down the number of people that we needed to deliver it. But what was more important in this regard was the speed and the quality of the responses that we were getting. So as emails were coming in, drafts, like, the AI would look at it, it would have access to all of our training material, would have access to all the commonly asked questions and things like that, and was able to draft replies to every email that came in. So one person can just go through and press send and fire off those messages. And those messages were often a lot longer, a lot more thoughtful, a lot more empathetic, I guess, than our normal sort of customer support people would have normally written, especially when they're under pressure. Like, rather than a 1 or 2 paragraph answer, it was, thank you so much for your message and all that. Like, all the pleasantries were in there. So the quality of that customer support went up, as well as the speed, and we did that with less people. So that was an example, obviously, of just one, and probably the first AI driven initiative that we had, that we put together. That solution at the time, it took a lot of planning and a lot of work, because we didn't have the tools available to us that we have today. That's literally something you could whip up in an afternoon, right? Now, that sort of solution. So for those companies that are, inboxes are overflowing with customer support or emails, and they're getting around to them, in a few days, and they haven't got that instant sort of, supply, it's the first thing you can do to really buy back a whole bunch of your time.
Absolutely. And, at the time, I remember speaking to the team, and 90% of emails, they would review them before they went out, just have a glance at them. And 90% they could just go right through, no changes needed, which is a real testament to the accuracy even back then. Nowadays, it would probably be 99% could just go right through without any editing. And, dealing with things like refund requests and stuff, if it's the end of a Friday, and you're busy, it's kind of the last thing you want to deal with. And yet, a well-designed agent can just eat that up, and they maintain the same tone. So that was literally, probably about 20 hours a week, saved, each week at least, maybe more. So we're talking over a year, over 1,000 hours saved, which is just absolutely incredible. And I know you've also done stuff around like AI, lead generation and follow-up, particularly with the I Love Real Estate business. How have you done that?
Yeah, so that's one of the ones that's really exciting, particularly now, because we've always had that. In theory, we could have an outbound sales team, but the follow up with leads, existing lists, sending emails, sending texts, even setting up the voice chats actually on the phone call to book calls for a sales team. In theory, we've known that's been available to us for a while, and we've been experimenting for probably 2 or 3 years now to try and find a solution that that really works better than blatant sort of automated, non-AI driven sort of communications, like sending out a text message, click this link to book a call, would often outperform the AI at the time. And there were so many gotchas and so many things and guardrails that had to be put in place to get that to work. So for years, we wanted this and we kept trying and we couldn't make it work. But it's really only about the last sort of 6 months that there's a combination. There's some off-the-shelf tools that are really cool, really good, built specifically for this, that actually do a reasonable job. But even now, just using, obviously I always lean towards a coded solution and a custom solution, because I like to have that control and I've got the ability. But yeah, the models now make this a reality. So even like now, so we've got a multimodal kind of outbound system. It's currently working, but we're rapidly expanding its functionality. But after an event, like a webinar, that we used to have a sales team that would go out and they would call everyone who attended the webinar and perhaps didn't take us up on the offer, or book a call, or whatever that call to action was on the webinar. So we had an outbound sales team that would call everyone, and of course they only work during office hours. And then they would start at the top of the list and they get down to the bottom, and then there'd be a lot of missed calls, voicemails left, calls replied to, and then that was their job to try and juggle all of that. But it was very inefficient, because a lot of people would call back at at 7:00 at night. Oh, sorry, I missed your call. The webinar was awesome. What are you calling me about? And he won't get to that till the next day, obviously, when he gets back in the office. It's just that nature of how people work in offices. So yeah, the automated process of that now after a webinar is a very personal text that goes out, and it's not obviously marketing or sales driven. It's like, hey, how did you find the webinar? If you've got any questions, I'm here to help and all that. And getting genuine replies, going, oh, it was really good. I did have a question about this, or I found this really interesting. We've got an AI now that just drives that conversation via SMS, and it has full context of what the webinar was about because it's actually got the transcription, right? So it knows the transcription. It knows roughly at what points things were talked about, so it can reference back to that. But also, it's got full information about the products that are available, full history of commonly asked questions, it just knows absolutely everything about our business. And we've empowered it to make decisions as to how much to share, even start asking sort of directional questions to sort of drive that conversation in a way that may end up, lead to a sale or lead to, a booked call. And the sales aptitude of these models now are amazing. You almost don't need, the less prompting, the better. Whereas before we had to sort of almost try and train it to be a good outbound salesperson. The new models now, you can just tell it, be a good salesperson or, model, a certain person or a certain sort of identity. And it does a really good job with that. And the guardrails are in place now. That's really easy to put in. So it's not going to go off and start, giving you the weather in Nepal or a chocolate cake recipe, which I've seen in the past. It was almost what the issue was earlier on. If people asked it any sort of question, it would be more than happy to answer it. And you didn't always have that control. But yeah, everything's so much more sophisticated now in the last 6 months. It's the sort of thing, again, that we could roll out with a company and a good plan and access to information about the business. You can put that together, in a weekend and be testing on a half a day and be really rolling it. Have that confidence that it's not going to go haywire and not going to say anything that it shouldn't. So that's what we're running that now via SMS, and we're testing. We've given it powers of email as well. So if it turns out someone's really interested in a certain aspect, it's got the ability to email them more information. So email them some videos, email them some PDFs, and things like that. So it can actually go, I'll send this to you. And what we've just launched is the voice aspect too. So it's like, if you'd rather have a chat, their voice is tricky at the moment because no one answers an unknown number these days, and most of them, their phone doesn't even ring. So it has to work in combination with the SMS functionality. So it'll send a text going, hey, I'm going to give you a call in 5 minutes. Yeah. And then, love to have a chat about whatever, or if you got, and just try and, pre-frame them. So then when that call does come through, one, it rings, and two, there's a better chance that they answer. And yeah, there is a whole bunch of new systems that have come on the market specifically for this and to carry that conversation. And yeah, that for us is exciting. So we're just building that now and we're testing it, that it has the ability. You don't have to load it up with all this concept about everything about your business. It can kind of go down pathways. So yeah, like if someone starts talking about a refund, it can go to almost like the refund agent. If they start talking about, they want to buy a program, they can go to the salesperson. If they've got an issue with the program, it can go to a customer support agent. And you've got these voice agents that they can sound the same, or you can give them a different voice, but essentially they've got their own context, their own goals, their own ways of carrying the conversation. And yeah, that for us is really cool.
Incredible. And what I'm hearing is it's almost like having a whole new team in your org chart, as it's working, like a the equivalent of hiring 5 years ago, hiring an external team that can work 24/7, but instead you've got this AI agent.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ability the training of those guys is also now the really cool thing. So again, I'm probably talking at a high level in that, I think everyone knows how hard it would be to train these agents, right? To operate in a certain capacity and operate on behalf of your business. That was really, really tricky. That's what I was saying. That like we knew it was theoretically possible, and now it's not. Now it is. The actual training for these models. So if you've got a customer support agent and you've got a whole bunch of stuff that they should know, we can just extrapolate all that information out just into a Google Doc that a founder or a manager or whatever can have access to. And then so if it's answering your calls, it can be the receptionist. And if someone's calling up about a certain information about a certain product, if it's in the Google Doc, the agent knows about it. So there's no retraining. There's no having to go through and tweak lots of settings. If a founder launches a new product or they send an email out about something specific, as long as they put a little bit of information into that Google Doc, and everyone can edit a Google Doc, the agent knows about it and can draw on that when answering queries and questions on the phone.
What's critical, and you referred to this before, is it's not going on to Reddit and the general internet for answers. It's tightly bound with the information you give it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the guardrails is the big sort of key word there. I guess is, you've got a job to do. Don't try and do everyone's job. This is your job, and and just ensuring that the conversation stays on track. That's actually been probably the biggest improvement over the last 12 months, and that alone has enabled a lot of these tools to now actually be really quite effective and production ready.
I love it. I love it. And do you have any sort of early metrics in terms of the amount of conversations it's been able to create with your live reps or sales or appointments or anything like that?
Yeah, so like I said, the voice is still quite early. We haven't really rolled that out into tests that yet. We are rolling it out as our main sort of receptionist as well soon. So we're kind of building that one hand in hand. But in terms of text, we ran one, I want to say it was probably 6 months ago. And what this was, it was slightly different. It was a text campaign that went to people that attended some live online workshops. And yeah, it had the goal of booking calls. But more than that, it actually had the goal of qualifying the people along the way. So it didn't want to book calls because there was too many people on the webinar. We didn't want to fill up everyone's diaries with that. So the conversation was interesting. It would start with, how did you find it? What did you like? Are you already in, investing, or are you already involved in this industry? And if it was a yes, it would go, all right, cool. It would start being more interested, and not in a question 1, question 2 type of way, but just, I'm really, that intrigues me, or that, like it would carry a very interesting conversation. And it was interesting, obviously, for the user as well. And then if it could identify that it was actually really quite a good prospect for the company, it had the power and the discretion to be able to go, all right, you know what, you should actually speak to, Joe on our team, who's obviously experienced in this area and all that. So it could actually book calls, qualify calls, but without even the person really realizing that that's what was going on. And so what we found, those conversations in terms of metrics, when we would previously send out a text message going, hey, hope you enjoyed the webinar. If you'd like some more information, book a call. We would get, I think it was like 7 or 8% of those would go through that. Now we had, so the messages, because they're a lot more innocent, and I don't want to say innocent, but they're a lot more social or casual, conversational in terms of that initial message. We got a much higher response. So we had twice as many people responding. And then we had, of the people that actually started responding, it was like 60% of them actually what we call completed the conversation. So had an actual back and forth conversation with an AI. And then those that qualified booked a call. So, the qualification process sort of determined what the success rate was or how many calls were booked. But in terms of actually carrying a conversation and getting just an immediate response, it was twice as good.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a conversational approach. And did people know it was an AI chatbot, or it's hard to know?
So we've tried both approaches
with an AI, because they're not like, oh, there's a sales guy texting you, a sales person.
Exactly. And we didn't say it off the bat, but we said it once that conversation started. So I'm sure there's a lot of different testing going on here, and depending on what the reason is, or what the application is, you might want to be upfront about it. You might also, if it's not super personal and it's not super, critical, you could probably get away with it. Like, I think the emails that we did, because there's always a human in the loop the AI was answering the emails, but a human would approve them. In that regard, you don't have to say it's an AI, right? Because it's essentially working on behalf of a real person. But these conversations, we would reach out, and then if they reply, I'd go, hey, I'm just an AI, but I know everything about this program and this product, and because I've been trained on 20 years worth of education. So ask me anything, and I think it sort of, it puts people at ease, I think. And what we found actually funny too, like people actually prefer to speak to an AI on the phone than a real person. If you tell someone, we tested that too. Yeah, if you sent the text and said, I'm going to call you in 5 minutes, and if you send the text and go, hey, my AI is going to call you in 5 minutes, people are more interested in actually picking up the phone and talking to the AI. Now, I don't know if that's just out of interest, or they're just intrigued to see what it sounds like, but I don't know. Some people don't want to talk to people.
Yeah, well, people don't mind talking to people, but they don't want to talk to salespeople.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm like that. I even get weird, like walking into a shop and not buying stuff. Nadi will do that all day. She'll like try 5 things on, walk out, not buy anything. I'm like, you're like, I've wasted their time. I didn't buy at least something. Yeah. So people feel weird around like salespeople and, all that sort of stuff. So whereas in AI, they can get all their questions answered. And, so it's just amazing. So what I hear is just like, you really expanded like the organization sales output through these, highly sophisticated agentic tools. They're multimodal as well, which I love. They can do this and they can do that. Exactly like what a salesperson can do, which is sales is typically like these might speak to them, then you might text them, then you might send an email, then you might follow up. So to have those different arrows arrows in your favor is great because it means there's a lot more business to do.
And I think there's a lot of people that would say that, we can replace salespeople, and I think you could probably replace a lot of sales support people. I think a good salesperson obviously still, is gold in any business. But what these tools enable you to do is to obviously increase the number of opportunities that they speak to. And if they've got too many opportunities and their diary is full, they have that ability to also qualify along the way. So you can increase the volume and the quality of your salesperson, and really sort of, increase the output of the assets that you've already got.
Amazing. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, incredible projects. I'm super inspired. Is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, I just that I'm excited, mate. And I'm sure this comes through. But I feel like, 5 years ago when we started working with a bit of AI, it was like, this is amazing. It's really helping us, write emails and helping debug code and things like that. But I feel like even the last 6 months, the second half of 2005 and into 2026 now, like it's just, I'm not the only one. It feels like we've got superpowers now. If you have the ability to leverage AI in any business now, it really is a superpowers moment. And everything's going to catch up. The world will catch up, and the generations that are growing up with this natively, obviously, this is going to look like silly like kids' toys, what we're doing now. But I still feel for the next couple of years, the advantage of people that really get into this is huge. We've got other businesses as well. I've got my wife's business that we've applied this to, and it's instantly, we're the market leaders in 2 years in an industry that's highly competitive, but we're the only one that's really applying AI to a lot of the communication type stuff. But any business, I can't really think of a business that can't apply this in some way and really stand out from the crowd and have a couple of years head start, if they get into it now. That's just crazy.
Business would be sort of in the health and fitness industry. What are the kind of the top 3 ways that you got an edge over your competitors with your AI?
So just, if we want to go discuss it a bit more, it's like the Pilates and yoga sort of business and this health and fitness industry, very, very, they all run the same sort of marketing models. So they run lead ads on Facebook, and then they book appointments, and then they've got sales teams that follow up relentlessly to sell cheap memberships or intro packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Literally everyone does it. And everyone's just, fighting for that. And it's the guys that have the best ads and the best sales team are the ones that do the best. So, we came into the industry 2 years ago. No sales team. We didn't want to sell. We didn't want a phone. We didn't want to do any phone sales. We sort of wanted the people to come to us, naturally. But in order to do that, you need pretty sophisticated marketing. So all of our communication is handled by an AI. There's a lot of SMS, and it's not, hey, come to our studio. Here's a free offer. It's like, we noticed you came to your first class yesterday. How are you feeling? The muscle's a bit sore. If you need any tips, let me know. And it's that hybrid approach of there's automation going out, and if a reply comes back, it's got the power and the direction that it can carry a conversation and answer a lot of questions. But if it sounds like someone's really serious about becoming a member, it can kind of bring that person into the loop, which is our founder, which is Mel, who's the face of the company. She's doing none of the emails, none of the texts, nothing, unless there's someone who's shown, they've come a few times, they're really interested. If they need to speak to someone, she'll give them a call, a 5-minute call. And more often than not, they turn into a member and all that. So there's no sales done by that. And obviously content's key. So
3 or 4 people if it wasn't for this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And most businesses like in this industry, there's a lot of outlay. There's a lot of warm-up. You open up a new gym in a new place. You're not full of members on day one. It usually takes, a year or two to really hit that point where you become profitable, and can think about doing anything else. So we were profitable on the first studio in week 2. We now got 3 studios inside 2 years, and we've got 3 more on the way. So it's just leveraging that thing and really, like, obviously, quality product, quality trainers, but all of that is super important. But in terms of actually,
unless you
exactly,
yeah,
you got to get them in. So, and a lot of the content generation. Again, we've sort of leveraged what we do here in some of the other businesses, but constant research. So, like industry, every morning there's a little research bot that goes out, researches the industry, finds any interesting news in the space, then takes on board the founders' kind of obvious opinions and writing styles and things. What would that person write about that article, right, or about that news story? And drafts every day. It drafts 3 articles based on research and stuff that can be easily just pushed out to the socials, onto the blog, and all that. And also gives suggestions for reels. So if you want to do content, things like that, your script's ready to go. So every morning, I mean, it doesn't happen every morning, but every morning you've got the opportunity to go, I want to do some content today. The content's already written. It's been researched. It's written in your voice. And it's, the more you do it, the more which ones you pick and you send, the better trained it gets as to what you like as well. So over time, that content's just getting more and more refined to exactly who you are, to the point where it's better than you. So this is it. This is in a health and fitness industry. That's what I'm saying. It's not any other. It's not a marketing thing. It's not an info product thing. It's not a sales business. This is health and fitness. It's completely different, right?
Yeah.
But you can apply this. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you think about it, obviously you've got your Pilates coaches to sort of, but they're like the bulk of your staff. Like in a normal business, you would have to have maybe a social media manager, maybe a marketing manager, maybe a few sales reps, maybe setup. And yet you've got none of that because you've just built an org chart based on these AI systems, which is such an elegant and elegant high profit business. And, that's one of the things that the patient partners talk about. Like one of the big things they do is like look at your org chart and work out where they can put agents onto your org chart. So rather than, and we all know, the big saying in business is head count walks on, your overhead walks on 2 legs. That's the biggest kind of factor to your overhead in many businesses. So by having this elegant approach, you've got such a lean and more profitable business, which really gives you a big moat as well. You can spend more on Facebook ads, you can spend more on expanding because you've just got that elegance. So, well done. For everyone that's inspired to take action, make sure you reach out to us at the AI Institute using the link in the bio. And, we've got a whole team ready to start transforming your business, whether it's in marketing, sales, operation, program delivery. And as you can see, now's the time to take action. So thank you so much, Reid.
Thank you, John. Thanks for listening, and look forward to working with everyone.